Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Remnant video. Today I have a really interesting critical build for you. This does require the DLC, and we are going to be using some of the new DLC items to really pump up our critical chance and have a really good time. So let's get going. As always, feel free to improve this build if you feel that there's something better out there, or if you can improve this build. Please feel free to post in the comments below and share it with everybody else, and I might even highlight your pin your comment. So let's get started. I'm gonna unequip everything as much as possible just to take you step by step. So let's start with the armor. Use whatever you want. I use just enough to get me up to 50 so I can use the fast roll. The heart doesn't really matter. Use whatever. Our goal, like I'm using this because it'll heal me just about enough to heal me completely in one go. Now if you go into stats right now, you see my range critical chance is just 5%, and I'm getting this from just the gunslinger archetype. It's a passive. So if I equip the 10% range critical chance fragment in my relic and 20% range critical damage, and let's say I could just go with, for the third slot you could put whatever. I feel 10% increased range damage is good enough. Now with just these three, you can see my range critical chance goes up to 15%, which is really cool. So the base of this build is you're going to have the Nightweaver's Grudge amulet equipped, and you're going to have the Atonement Fold ring equipped. So what this does, you see you got a bunch of stuff here. What this ring does is it inflicts bleeding on yourself every second. It's a permanent debuff. You'll get 1.1 HP damage every second. However, it'll also increase your critical chance by 10%. Now if you use the Nightweaver's Grudge, you gain 20% critical chance and permanent haste when you're within 15 meters of an entity suffering from a status effect. Now, if you don't know, entity constitutes everything: enemies, bosses, players, summons, even your freaking turret, right? As long as it bleeds, it counts as an entity. So, as long as you're wearing these two, you're getting 10% critical chance from this and 20% critical chance and permanent haste effect. Haste effect increases your run speed, reload speed, movement speed, climbing speed, all that stuff permanently by 7%, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it is about 7%. So it's a massive boost. Now look at our critical chance. I have 30% base critical chance, and if you use your weapons, which of course we will be, we're not using melee, that our melee critical range critical chance is 15%. So combine that, we have 45%. How do we bump this up? If we equip another archetype which gives us innate passive critical chance just like the gunslinger, the safest bet is of course hunter if you want more DPS. You could also equip summoner, I believe. Sorry, not summoner, handler, which also gives you range critical chance. The medic gives you 5% critical chance, stuff like that. Use whatever you like depending on the difficulty. I personally choose to use the hunter and gunslinger. It's the most well-known DPS combo. It will give you 5% extra critical chance. So now we're up to 50% base critical chance with just this. Now if you use your Hunter's Mark ability, every one of our Hunter's ability, when you mark targets, Mark will increase critical chance by 15%. So that is 15% on top of whatever we have. All right, so for the weapons, I will highly recommend using the Fetid Wounds mutator. What this does is it'll increase the base critical chance of the weapon by 5%, just like that, flat, just by equipping the mod. And then for every negative status on the enemy, that counts burning, bleeding, shock, corrosive, whatever, slow, all that. For every negative status on the enemy, it'll increase your critical chance by 5% more. So what
Still bleeding.
I know you're still bleeding. Shut up. That's the side effect of this ring. Anyway, so this gun applies burning innately, and then on a critical hit, this if you hit the weak spot of enemies, it'll apply corrosive damage. So on a weak spot hit or a critical hit, you are applying burning and corrosive. That is 2 status effects. So your critical chance is going to be increased by 10%, just like that. See what I'm going where? Now, if you want to up this further, right, you could equip the probability card, which will increase your critical damage by 50%. Then we're gonna have Red Ring of Death. Now duplicates the last damaging negative status applied to the target. So whatever negative status, burning, corrosive, all that stuff, it'll duplicate it, and it'll this will massively increase your DPS. And for the final ring, it is very flexible. We'll get into the final slot in just a bit. I want to finish up with the weapons first. So I'm also using the MP60, which with Twisting Wounds and Song of Aether. Now what Song of Aether does is it basically slows enemies in a massive radius when you use its mod. At a massive radius, it'll slow enemies down, and that slow also counts as a debuff. And because you have the Twisting Wounds mutator on it, this also applies bleeding on critical hits. So you can swap your weapons, you can apply up to 4 status effects, and this is not even counting the fact that I'm not using my ability of weapon mod. So you can apply shock, fire, bleeding, slow, and corrosive. 5 status effects all in one with this setup. It's amazing. Anyway, so we're gonna get to the last slot in just a bit. Let's go to our traits. I have a bunch of points to spend, but this is what I've got. You get long shot and ammo reserves from the classes that you equip, Hunter and Gunslinger. I would max out. Can he shut up? Okay, let me go over here. Sorry. All right, so I'm gonna max out regrowth to counter the bleeding debuff. Bleeding you need to have some sort of health regeneration to counter the debuff. So we're gonna max out regrowth. We're gonna max out triage for the heals. We're gonna max out vigor, always for health. We're gonna max out spirit and expertise. Spirit for getting our mod power really quickly, so we can use our mods and apply even more status effects. And ability, because our hunter mark will give us more critical chance, and of course the gunslinger ability will give you unlimited ammo and increased fire rate and reload speed, all that stuff. You know how it works. All right, so spirit and expertise. What's next? We've got so basically rest is up to you. You know, if you're playing on harder difficulty, I would recommend using fortify with strong back and equipping heavier armor. You could also have swiftness and like handling perhaps, or I would actually recommend handling on this. So this your reticle of the shotgun becomes smaller, gives you a little bit more control over your shots. If you really want this to be even smaller, you could sacrifice a 10% range damage, and you can have 30% minus 30% weapon spread, and your shotgun reticle will be really small. All right, so let's get into the final ring slot. Now you can have a bunch of options. If you want more offense, you could put any damaging ring, you know, like you could put elemental damage rings. You could put if you're using the Sparkfire, you could also put the ring that gives you signed ring, increases all damage to burning enemies by 10%. Why do I recommend this with the Sparkfire? Because Sparkfire will apply burning to targets regardless. You know, if you put Merciless on, for example, Merciless applies bleeding but only on weak spot and critical hits, whereas the Sparkfire will apply burning just like that. Just by hitting enemies, you'll apply burning. So this is a free 10% damage boost. Or if you want defensive option, if you want a defensive option, you could have Alchemy Stone. So what it does is increases, I don't think you can see it, 1 second. So this increases base lifesteal by 6% while suffering from a negative status. So you're always suffering from a negative status. So you will have constant 6% lifesteal. So you could put some points into Siphoner, so you'll have a permanent 9% status, lifesteal. That's an option. Or if you want some more option, I would also recommend, where's that ring? Give me a second. It is called, we really need a ring filter. Give me a second. Oh, there we go. The hardcore metal band. So what this does is taking damage adds 1 stack of bulwark, which
won't stop.
Which goes up to 5 stacks. Now the thing is, you're suffering from a negative status effect and you're constantly bleeding. You are constantly facing damage. Look at this. I already have 5 bulwark stacks, so my damage reduction is 25% just by keeping this ring. You will constantly have 5 bulwark stacks, which is amazing. Now for offensive options, or if you want some mod regeneration, which is, I personally used this Fair and Sigil. Critical and weak spot hits will generate 10% additional mod power. Using this, you're always going to be critting, so you're going to generate more mod power, which means you're going to be applying more corrosive, shock, burning, what have you. You'll be constantly slowing enemies down. You'll be constantly, you can use your mod power within like several times in a single boss fight or an elite fight. So I personally prefer this, but again, it is up to you. So yeah, that is it for me and this build. Hope you really enjoyed it. Let me quickly demonstrate this. The DPS, the rotation, how you can go about. You pop in Hunter's Mark, let's say, then you pop in Song of Aether, you activate your mods and your abilities, and you can easily see our DPS goes almost up to 4,000. It's insane. It's really insane. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to, as I said, improve upon this, and I will see you guys in the next one. Stay safe and have fun.